Professor Lucinda Ortiz, Historical Marine Ecologist. Good afternoon, students. Thank you for attending my lecture this afternoon, titled Swimming Through the Past. My name is Professor Lucinda Ortiz, and I am a historical marine ecologist. This is an interdisciplinary area of study that helps society gain a more in-depth understanding of past interactions between people and the environment in coastal and marine ecosystems. In addition to studying the past, we also think about how it applies to today, understanding our present-day conditions as the results of those interactions. The method I use to do my job is very fun. I utilize historical photographs and old documents for evidence, using them to look back into the past to understand what our marine environment was like back then. When I compare these documents to data we have today, I can describe how our environment is changing and what is happening to the animals that live in these coastal areas. My geographic area of specialization is the Gulf Coast of Florida. I have recently been conducting research using the Mary Family Archive at the Gulf Beaches Historical Museum, and I'm excited to share my findings with you today. The Marys were pioneers in their Pinellas County coastal town of Pasagrille. They settled in this beach community in the year 1900 and operated a fishing pier and recreational fishing business throughout subsequent decades. When the patriarch, Ken Mary Sr., passed away in 1981, his descendants left the family's collection of photographs from their businesses to the museum. I've used these photos to develop a better understanding of how fish stocks in the Gulf of Mexico have changed over time in response to increases in the human population along the coast and the rise of modern commercial fishing in the 20th century. I'm going to hone in on a few key species to illustrate my research. The first fish we are going to observe is the Goliath Grouper, formerly known as the Jewfish. As we can observe from these Mary family images, the population of the Goliath Grouper was healthy and hardy and made a good catch for any fisherman. Goliath Grouper is the largest of the Atlantic groupers. This giant can reach 800 pounds and over 8 feet in length. This species has been targeted both commercially and recreationally since at least the 1800s. Goliath grouper populations declined during the 1970s and 1980s due to increased fishing pressure from commercial and recreational fishers and divers and declines in juvenile habitats. Goliath form large aggregations, and these often occur in areas where fishermen congregate. Goliath are also susceptible to large-scale mortality events such as cold temperatures and red tide blooms. This led to a prohibition from harvest in U.S. waters in 1990. Luckily, the Goliath grouper populations have subsequently recovered since the harvest prohibition took effect. There have been increases in abundance in certain areas, and the distribution of Goliath grouper populations has extended into areas of its former range throughout Florida. However, it is not clear as to when they may fully recover and when harvest restrictions could be relaxed. The second species we will examine is the Sawfish, found in 2 of the Mary photos dating back to 1919. There are 5 Sawfish species worldwide. All are considered critically endangered and poorly studied. Small-toothed sawfish belong to a group of fishes called elasmobranchs that include all other rays and sharks. Small-toothed sawfish swim like sharks but are actually a type of ray. The population of small-toothed sawfish in the United States experienced a large decline over the last century. The species was thought to be close to extinction before researchers documented moderate numbers of individuals in Florida in the late 1990s, particularly the south and southwest regions of the state. The small-toothed sawfish has been protected from harvest in Florida since 1992, listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act since 2003, and protected from the international trade since 2007. Yet the species was once common on both Florida coasts, especially in the late 1800s and early 1900s, just like the tarpon, which is one of the oldest but also most vulnerable species in the Gulf of Mexico. Fossils of this genus go back to the Cretaceous era, some 113 million years ago. These fish are not just ancient as a type, but also individual tarpon can live to be 80 years old. Tarpon are strong, fast, and can jump more than 10 feet in the air. While you'd imagine this would make them hard to catch, Their elusiveness is what makes them attractive to sport fishermen. We can see that the Mary's clients sought out this species, which is now under catch and release restrictions in Florida due to their dwindling numbers. Prior decades of recreational fishing under the catch and consume model is partially responsible, as is the decimation of the tarpon's food chain. Wild Gulf shrimp, a staple of the tarpon diet, has itself been overharvested by people. While we have been able to identify and discuss some species that are threatened or even incredibly rare today, not all of our species that we observe in the Mary Archive are on the endangered species list. One example of this is the Florida kingfish. As you can see from this photo, dating back nearly 60 years, there are an abundance of kingfish that Captain Mary caught on their trip. This abundance of kingfish can still be found along Florida shores today. While these sport fish are fun to catch, their fillets are rather oily and a bit tough to cook. These factors have protected the kingfish from commercial harvesting, and most recreational fishermen throw these guys back. If we look closely at this photo, we can see some kingfish as well as another fish we have discussed today. Can you identify it? That's right, it's a Goliath Grouper. I hope this lecture has piqued your curiosity about my field of study and will encourage you to consider more deeply the value of our ecosystems and the animals that inhabit them. With access to these historic resources, we have been able to identify rare species that inhabited our waters almost 100 years ago, as well as ones that are still present today, in reality and in our imaginations, like the blacktip and bull sharks, which, did you know, are near threatened themselves. Not only are these images a resource for scientists to track the populations of our fish, they also serve a lesson to our community to consider the implications of our actions and show the importance of maintaining these species. As historical marine ecologists in the making, make sure you are doing your part in protecting these species, as well as their environment, so our beautiful state can be enjoyed by friends and family for generations to come.